Chapter 9. The plane wa- the plane ride was relatively smooth, save for a few wind shears along the way. Jesse seemed to fly as though he knew he had passengers, but still wanted to go Top Gun despite that fact. The state of his plane wasn't much better either. It seemed good old American engineering could keep the plane in the air, but was unable to keep the exhaust fumes from seeping in. Ivar and I had to keep our hands cupped over our faces for the entire flight. Jesse didn't seem to mind, but by the way he acted, I figured all the damage that could have been done to his brain had already been done. We landed at a small airport that was just stuck out in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by desert. It wasn't much of an airport, just two terminals, and from the condition they were in, few employees to take care of them. As we taxied across the tarmac, I saw only a few other planes, no bigger than Jesse's. When we finally came to a stop, the door flew open and I dashed out. As I did, the air nearly blasted me back. The sun was beating down and heat was radiating up from the ground. I could sense the aroma of livestock nearby, but I couldn't see where it was coming from. I was glad I could breathe again. "Where are we?" I asked as Ivar climbed out of the plane. "Just a few miles north of a small town known as Diablo Ludo." "Great. Couldn't we have gone all the way to hell?" "Did you think at all about the demon on the plane?" "Yeah, and we weren't attacked. The potion must be working then." "Woohoo. Let's just get out of here," I said. I turned away and started heading towards the entrance to the nearest terminal with the hope they had air conditioning or at least a bar. Ivar was close behind me. "I think you'd be somewhat happy about that." "I am, don't get me wrong, but who cares? It's a band-aid. I got this demon off my back fine, but like you said, I could still be cursed for the rest of my life. I'm gonna have to keep looking over my shoulders until the day I die. I'll never be free." "The one could still be able to cure you. It's not certain that you must suffer any longer. You should just stop here. We should just stop here. I should just let the damn thing kill me. I'd be better off," I said as I walked into the terminal. The air was barely cooler inside. I felt Ivar place his hand on my shoulder. I looked over to see him actually smiling at me. "Sometimes our faith is rewarded," he said, and pushed past me toward a small desk that had a sign over it that said car rentals. Ivar was able to rent out the last car that was available, a beaten up, rusted out heap of junk shaped like a Jeep. It was covered in a thick layer of dirt and mud. The seats were torn and blistered with only some loose rope serving as seat belts. We got in and Ivar started the Jeep up. The engine sounded like it had a cat stuck inside of it and smelled like it too. Ivar drove the truck out into the desert. I noticed he chose to bypass the main road, which looked to lead to a small cluster of buildings a few miles away, in favor of a barren landscape that seemed to go on forever. We bounded over the sand dunes and large hills. I gripped a seat to just keep inside the cars that tumbled across the burning sea of sand. "You do know where you're going, right?" I asked with hope. "I'll know where we need to be when we get there." A simple no would be fine. "I'm trying to follow the energy." "Are you sure you're not following the sun?" "Patience," he said. We came up over a large hill, and I felt a wave of relief when I saw a cluster of buildings and tents with millions of people surrounding them far off along a flat plain below us. Ivar drove down the hill, and it was so steep I was sure the Jeep was going to flip over. We landed hard on the flat rock surface and accelerated towards the encampment. As we got closer, I could see it looked like a temporary setup, and I could hear chanting and music. "Burning Man," I said. "What?" "This is Burning Man, that art commune thing they do every year. You brought us to Burning Man? This is where the energy has led us. The one is at Burning Man." "We shall see," Ivar said as he continued. We drove up to a small camp outside the main area where people were checking in. I hopped out of the Jeep and looked around. I saw people who looked normal and regular walking alongside people wearing nothing but paint and feathers. One girl was walking along on stilts with rubber hoses sheathed over her arms, acting as some sort of tentacles. We walked over toward the tents, and the largest one had a large sign hung over the opening that read "Welcome," and we went on in. I noticed that the staff was dressed colorfully. One guy was sporting a pith helmet and a loincloth, and an older woman who worked with him was clad from head to toe in bright red fishnet stockings. Passes? The loincloth dude asked. I looked to Ivar, but he just had the same stone expression on his face. We don't really have tickets. This was kind of a spur of the moment thing, I said. Everyone around us exploded in laughter. I'm sorry, guys, really. It's just that Burning Man isn't something you just come and do. You're going to be out here in the desert for days. You need to prepare. I thought you guys were all about free spirits. We are, but you must be careful and stay healthy too. You're going to need water and food. So if we can get some of that, we can come in? No. While we're about free spirits, we're not about free admission. Everyone everyone here has contributed. Fine, here, I said as I pulled out my wallet. How much? I asked. I counted out $15. $3.50, he said. Oh, okay. $350, he amended. I looked up at him in disbelief. Each, he added. I'm sorry, man, but all this doesn't come cheap. The money we collect helps us keep the spirit going year after year. I know, but thing is, my friend and I are following energy, and it led us here. We really need to get in. Well, you really need a ticket. I can't help you. I'm Ivar said. Our loincloth friend looked up at him in curiosity. A sprightly girl wearing only dress pants and suspenders ran up to him and whispered in his ear. He looked back at us and smiled. Enjoy Burning Man, he said, and stood aside. Ivar and I walked past him and out the other end of the tent. The girl in the pants caught us as we came out. Hi, she said, as I tried to keep from noticing the small straps pressing against her bare chest. I'm Jinx. He was wondering when you'd get here. Who? I asked. The one, Ivar said. That's right, Jinx added. She led us toward the main grounds. There were camps and structures of all kinds surrounding us. I saw a large section that had several games, including a small golf course and a large jungle gym that had to be at least 4 stories high. We continued through the shanty town. Club music was blasting out from all sides and people were dancing all around, most of who were naked. We came upon a large ornate tower that looked to be made up of popsicle sticks. From there, Jinx led us around to a large tent that was set apart from the others. It was made of a velvety material and appeared to be most sturdy, well-built tent there. There was a small rug rolled out in front of it and a canopy that kept the entrance nice and shady. Jinx stopped just in front of it and turned back to us. This is it, Ivar said. We walked toward the tent, but Jinx threw her arm out and stopped Ivar. Just him, she said. Ivar looked to me and gave me as assuring a look as he could manage. I went on into the tent. As I did, all the noise and heat of outside seemed to disappear. I couldn't see anything as my eyes hadn't adjusted. Hello, a voice called out. Hi, I said in the general direction of the voice. Sit. Okay, I said as I felt around searching for a chair. I fell back and landed on something large and soft. A faint light appeared. I saw an old man sitting at a table, lighting a small candle. He looked good for his age, not too wrinkled, and he had most of his hair. It all turned gray, but he still had it. I looked down and saw that I was butt deep in an orange beanbag chair. Jake Corba. You're the one? That is one name I haven't been known by. You may call me Jonathan. Jonathan. Doesn't sound very holy to me. It's just a name, Mr. Corba. Fine, whatever. I know what you need. I've already known. I just wanted to speak with you. You don't seem to have much interest in your family. Not really, no. Not that there's much to know. My parents are dead. I've been stuck with a demon in my soul. Would you want to know any more about a family like that? Perhaps not. But it's difficult to go through life not knowing who you are. Who you really are. I know who I am. How could that be? You don't know anything about the family from which you come. If you don't know where you came from, how can you be certain where you're going? I don't have a family. I have me. That's all I need. I don't need to know about my first cousin's father to know how to lead my life. That's not quite what I meant. I know. Your family is what some refer to as a special case. special even among special cases. Yeah, cursed. But with that curse comes responsibility. Look, I didn't come here for a lesson in my family tree. I just came here to get this damn demon off my ass. I don't care about my family line. I don't want to know anything about it. What little I already know tells me I shouldn't dig any deeper, I said. I felt rage rising in me. Jonathan looked at me very thoughtfully. He got up from his seat and walked around the room. I just then noticed all the strange items he had displayed along small wooden shelves along the walls. Some golden orbs and shiny metal trophies. I could make out a few daggers and knives with bizarre and overly ornate handles. He picked up a large glass orb and held it up in his hands and stared into it intensely. Your resistance is troubling. The Corba family has a long tradition of demon hunting and has been quite crucial in some very decisive battles over the years. In your complacence, we have come to rely on them too much. In our complacence, we have come to rely on them too much. We? Who's we? Not your concern. I sense remarkable things in you, Jake Corba. I see a powerful light in your soul as well as a great darkness. Fine, great, thanks. Can you help me or not? I asked urgently. Jonathan set down his glass orb and calmly took his seat again. I would speak with Ivar now, he said. What? I would like to speak with Ivar, please, he said. His tone told me there was no point in arguing, so I struggled up out of the chair and I felt my way back to the entrance. I stepped out and was surprised to see the sky was dark and the air had grown cold. Torches were lit and burning all around the camps. I saw Jinx and Ivar standing nearby. Ivar ran to me as he turned toward me. Jake, how long was I in there? Several hours. What did he tell you? He wants to speak with you, I said. Ivar was shocked by the news, but I saw a look of pride come over him. He walked past me and solemnly marched into the tent. I walked over to Jinx. How'd it go in there? She asked casually. Fine, I guess. You ever talk to this guy? No. I see. We stood there in silence. I tried as hard as I could not to stare, but it was hard. I looked over in the distance and saw a large fire with several people dancing around it wildly. I noticed many of them were women and many of them were topless. This place is crazy. It's just a place where people can release their inner passions, free of judgment. It's healthy to blow off steam once in a while. It can be cathartic for some. Maybe, but for my money, it's crazy. Ivar emerged from the tent and walked over to me. We have been asked to leave, he said. We're being kicked out? No. The one has instructed us to leave here for now. He says we need to go to Diablo Ludo. Look, I get that you think this guy is super holy or whatever, but I get the feeling he's just jerking our chains around. Why didn't he just lead us there when we first landed? That is not for us to question. We need to go now. Guys, Jinx said in a timid tone, you really can't leave. The burn has already begun. I understand that, Jinx, but we do need to leave, Ivar said. Ivar took my arm and dragged me back the way we came, toward the tent we entered through. Jinx followed behind us, imploring us to stop. As we approached the tent, a large group of people formed before us. A young guy pushed out of the crowd. He had neon piping wrapped around up and down his arms and legs, with neon paint splashed across his bare chest. The only bit of clothing he had on was a leather pouch wrapped around his junk. His hair was frizzed and crazy. Large patches looked to have been shaved out randomly. Where do you guys think you're going? Look, Braveheart, me and my friend have to go. If you all could just step aside, I said. No one leaves the burning. We are a community, and our energy is shared. If you leave, you drain us. We don't want to be drained. Then I guess you haven't found the right girl to do it then, I said with a laugh. I looked at Braveheart's face. He was not laughing. We all depend on each other to keep this place alive. I, for one, will not let you sabotage us. You are not leaving. So the whole free spirit thing kind of doesn't apply here, I said. The guy didn't say anything. I heard rumblings among the crowd. Someone came up behind him and whispered into his ear. Fine. he said, and then looked back to Ivar and me. You may leave if you can pass the trial. The trial? What trial? After minimal explanation, the crowd forced us over to the large jungle gym I had seen earlier. There were torches burning around it. People were hanging all over it and seemed to be waiting for something. Braveheart instructed me to crawl inside the jungle gym. As I did, I noticed how much louder the cheers and yells from the other people outside were on the inside. I walked towards the center. Stop, Braveheart said. I turned to him, and he stood before me in a very hostile stance. Okay, now. What, dance off? I asked. Braveheart let out a yell and charged toward me. He jumped up and planted his foot into my stomach. I fell back and slid across the ground. You win, you go. You lose, you stay, he said. I got back up, and I could see from his energy he had danced like this before. Fine, Braveheart. Do you want to go? Let's go, I said. He jumped around a bit. I threw a punch, but he ducked away and went around me and landed his fist in my lower back. A shock of pain shot through me, and I fell forward. He was zipping around like lightning. Man, I don't know what you're on, but after I finish kicking your ass, you have to tell me, I said as a blur of neon light passed by me and the pressure of a fist hit my face. I spun around and felt a warm liquid on my face. I looked down at my hand and I saw a generous amount of blood on it. My anger meter was going higher. I tightened my fist and decided to play his game. I bolted forward and leapt up and started climbing up the jungle gym. The crowd outside blew up in cheers. I looked over and saw him crawling up like a spider. As he got in close, I hooked my legs around a bar, fell back and swung around him and pounded on his back. When I was done, I grabbed what little hair I could and pulled him off the bars. I dropped him to the ground. It wasn't far enough to kill him, but he'd be in pain. I saw him through the dust rolling around it in pain, but he was getting up. I started crawling up the bars again. I heard him climbing up after me. He had slowed down. I reached the top of the jungle gym and started crossing the bars across the roof of the cage. I was going hand over hand across the structure. I turned and saw Braveheart coming toward me. When he got close enough, I swung up and kicked him hard in his chest. His arm gave out and he dropped down a bit. I kicked out at him and he flailed out at me. I noticed he had a bit of an advantage as his toenails were long and had been sharpened into claws. He slashed at me like a feral creature. I felt my grip weakening and the logic of my strategy was escaping me. I flipped around and started away with the intent of climbing back down. I felt a sharp stab in my back, and with a quick scream, I fell and landed hard into the ground. I was struggling for air when I felt a tremendous weight land on my stomach. When the dust cleared, I saw Braveheart standing on top of me with a smug smirk. Give up? He asked. No, I forced out. I grabbed his ankle and flipped him over. He fell, and I was on him. I grabbed his arm and pinned him down. I then began to pound him against the ground. I could hear his skull knocking against the rock floor. After a few good ones, I tossed him aside. He was bruised up, but nothing serious. I crawled over and clamped my arm over his throat. May we leave? I hissed. Braveheart opened his eyes. He looked like he was about to cry. Go, he whispered. That's a sport. Take care now, I said, and gave him a playful slap on his red cheek. Ivar and I were ushered out with little ceremony, and we found the jeep. As we got in, we could hear the music and celebrations going on back in the camps. We drove back toward the main road that would lead us back to Diablo Ludo.